Welcome to What's in a Game. On today's show, does the team of the Joker have a jack of all trades? Today, we're talking about Denver's versatility. Do the Nuggets have the different looks they need to keep opponents off balance, or will they be even more reliant on their best punch? But first, the Clippers are in the absolute mud. More details come out about their cap circumvention allegations. Will they be able to dig themselves out of this one? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones. How are you doing on this wonderful, very rainy for me, Thursday, Will? Honest answer. This is an honest podcast. Oh no. Is it your microphone? Oh no, now I can't hear you at all. Will is having what did they call it? A terrible, no good, very bad day. I never
Okay.
saw that movie.
Now
Well, while
people
Will
can hear
can't
me.
respond,
People can hear
still
me now.
can't hear you, Will.
You can't hear me?
You are muted or not
Let's
connected
see.
at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and you sound perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
That was okay.
We're back, baby.
Don't worry, we're back in business.
All
Back in
right.
business.
All right. Well, so outside of those technical difficulties, what is going on with your day to make it so bad?
It's just some awful news and things that are upsetting that I won't go into. I'll go into it more when we talk about Coach Malone at ESPN, but
Oh, okay.
otherwise, it's good to just get back and talk to you and talk some basketball, I guess, and talk about the Nuggets, which can't get here soon enough.
We are so close to having actual NBA basketball, albeit preseason basketball, but at this point, I'll take anything to talk about. The WNBA playoffs actually started this week, which I don't remember. I don't think I mentioned on our last show because they hadn't started yet. My Golden State Valkyries got eliminated last night by the Minnesota Lynx. They put up a fight, but they just didn't have enough. Yeah, so we have a lot to get into in this show, so let's just dive right in. But before we do, please do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us out with the algorithm as we try to grow the channel. I think we'll do another appreciation something when we hit 1,500 subs. We're currently at just over 1,100 right now, trying to hit 1,500. Who knows? Maybe we will hit that mark before the start of the season because it's one of those things where it's like really fast and then like nothing for weeks. And basketball is about to start up soon, so or NBA basketball is. Yeah. All right, let's jump into it. All right, first news item is one that we just added, that I just added to the show notes within this last hour because of the wonderful reporting, investigative sports journalism by Pablo Torre that he's been doing really all summer, but particularly over the last month. He's been doing the investigation for apparently 7 months, but reporting on these salary cap circumvention allegations with the LA Clippers, allegedly funneling money to Kawhi Leonard via one of their sponsors, which was a fraudulent tree planting brokerage, carbon credits, hand wavy. Here's a way for companies to not have to reduce their emissions. Oh, it turns out it's a Fugazi companies named Aspiration. Okay. We detailed that a couple shows back. The initial reporting was, hey, Steve Ballmer puts in $50 million into this company, and Kawhi Leonard apparently initially reported gets this $28 million deal from the company to do absolutely nothing, apparently, in a no-show contract where he had effectively no obligations to do appearances, media, whatever it is that athletes do when it comes to these sponsorship deals. But then later reporting that came out like a day after Pablo's initial podcast from the, I think it was the Boston Sports Journal, found that another $20 million had gone to Kawhi in the form of stock in the company. And so it was like, oh, well, that adds up to 48 million. That's around the 50 million that Steve Ballmer put in shortly before that Kawhi Leonard contract was signed with this company. Is this how the Clippers have been allegedly funneling additional money to Kawhi Leonard outside of the bounds of his NBA contract, which is very much not allowed? Adam Silver's words, cap circumvention is a cardinal sin, right? So that was the initial reporting, and we've talked about that on the show. One of the things that really bothered me in the aftermath of that initial reporting, and this was a sort of chant that was echoed both by Steve Ballmer himself when he went on his initial ESPN, like, I didn't do this, like, publicly denouncing all of these allegations, which I was going to say, oh, he had to do that, but he didn't have to. He could have just not said anything, which I think would have been also understandable in this situation. But he went on with Ramona Shelburne and said, I was personally defrauded by this company. And like, I welcome the NBA investigating, but we didn't do anything wrong. All that, right? It's been chanted by him and echoed by people like Mark Cuban, who are trying to defend Steve Ballmer and his known actions by trying to ascribe other intent, other, explanations for it all, but also echoing this same sentiment of like, well, I was also like, he was also defrauded by this company. Like, why aren't we investigating the fraud of the company? And it really bothered me because the fact that Aspiration was/is a total fraud of a corporation does not answer the actual salary cap circumvention allegations against Steve Ballmer. And I think the way I want to start today's show is by playing a clip from the most recent Pablo Torre episode. Pablo Torre finds out that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail, in which he basically sums up how I've been feeling about this story for the last 2.5 weeks.
All right, ready?
Given all of this across 4 episodes now,
is
that
volume
two
up?
things can be true. It can totally be true that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer was in fact a victim of a massive scam, allegedly engineered by Aspiration co-founder Joe Sandberg, who pled guilty in federal court for wire fraud. But this could have been especially painful to Steve Ballmer because Steve Ballmer had also partnered with Joe Sandberg through Aspiration in a secret plan to scam the NBA and also profit in the process, potentially funneling tens of millions of dollars to Kawhi Leonard, his superstar, through a team sponsor right underneath the nose of Adam Silver and the NBA itself, allegedly creating what would amount to the most elaborate salary cap circumvention scheme in the history of professional sports. And so the denials, I think, are, of course, worth including here. The Clippers deny it. Ballmer denies it. They deny that they circumvented the salary cap. They initially called any such assertion, quote, provably false. And then that phrase disappeared from the next statement. But to be even clearer about this, I think we're talking about the biggest scandal in the history of the modern NBA.
And yeah, so there you have it. Basically sums up my feelings on this, that this whole idea that like, well, the Clippers and Steve Ballmer was also defrauded by this company does not preclude any of these allegations from being true, that you conspired with them or tried to use them as a way to funnel additional cash to Kawhi Leonard. It's completely like, it's not germane to the conversation. Or so I thought for the last 2 weeks, even after Pablo has, since the initial reporting, done 2 additional episodes detailing new new reporting on this story. The first is that what was basically centered around a paper trail that led to Clippers minority owner and Steve Ballmer's college roommate, Dennis Wong, giving $2 million to Aspiration shortly before a Kawhi was paid his second payment in this payment plan that was effectively him getting like $2 million every like quarter approximately over the course of this contract. But it was super late. And Aspiration was running low on funds because they were a fake company and people were starting to find out and they were not putting money into the company anymore. So what happens? Dennis Wong, from, again, the minority owner of the Clippers, gave them $2 million at a time that nobody else was investing in this company, no major investors. And that was 9 days before Kawhi Leonard was finally paid on a payment that was approximately, I think at that point, 2 months late, right? And the reason that I pair these two things together, like, okay, Steve Ballmer is like, hey, when I put my money in like way earlier, like I was being defrauded, all this stuff. Dennis Wong put $2 million into a company that was known to be in default. And he had to have known that it was in default because of the financial disclosures that came with his investment, where they had to say, we are in default. This money is broke. You are not going to be making this money back, right? And, you know, part of it's like, well, the other thing that came out of this reporting is that apparently Dennis Wong's daughter worked at this company. So it's like, is he trying to like save her job? That's kind of weird. It's like, you could just give her a job. I've heard people say that and I'm like, maybe. But even if that were the case, I don't think that she was part of this. But the same day that Kawhi got paid, the company went through a round of layoffs that took out 20% of their staff in that particular payment. Highly encourage everybody to check out Pablo Torre's second episode to get the full detailing of this Dennis Wong thing, right? But that's not even what the main kind of crux of today's show is about. But Will, actually, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this story in depth since our the last time that we talked about it, which was I think 2 episodes ago. You got a chance, I assume, to listen to the episode that led to Dennis Wong and all of those allegations, right? Where were you, if you could remind the audience, after Pablo's initial reporting, and what kind of did that second episode that was just about Dennis Wong and this $2 million payment and the connection to like the financial state that the company was in, did that fill any gaps in the story for you? Did it raise any new questions for you at that time?
Yeah, I think I was in a little bit of a wait and see mode with the initial reporting, just because, you know, like it was fun talking about it with you and, you know, reading between the lines of a lot of this. But I did want to also see if an investigation happens, which is going to take a while. I just wanted to see what would be found and where that would end up. And then Pablo released that episode that you just detailed with the information on Wong. And I almost thought that was, you know, pretty damning. It was pretty much a smoking gun. Can we go through
the bullet points about why that one? It's crazy because you're like, well, it's just one $2 million payment at some random time, guys. This was sus as hell. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, the fact that it was like just a little bit above what they were giving to Kawhi, with it was like 1.9 million and they owed Kawhi at that point $1.75 million, and maybe like the difference is like what Aspiration gets to like keep off the top. That was always my logic when it came to the, oh well, Ballmer gave them 50 million and Kawhi, between the stocks and the contract that Aspiration gave him, was getting 48 million, and I was like, okay, that's close enough to where I can put that together. But the other thing is, Dennis Wong had never put money into this company at the point that he gave them the $2 million when they were already failing. Nobody else was investing at that time, as I stated before. And the financial disclosures that came with his investment, like to him, was we are in default. Like, why are you investing $2 million into a company you've never? This isn't like I'm already invested in this company and I'm like trying to save it kind of thing. He had never put money into it before. So why at the point that you're not seeing that money back ever again, probably, are you putting money into this company?
Yeah, and for him to have such, his connections with Steve Ballmer that goes way back to when they were in college, and he's this vice president, whatever, exec in the Clippers organization.
He's like the Josh Kroenke of the Clippers, by the way. He's the minority owner and also, was it like vice chairman? It's like the same title, but for the Clippers.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just find it, like Mark Cuban goes on this whole spiel about how hard the scenario is to believe if it was cap circumvention. And kind of even today on Twitter was talking about how these payments to Kawhi, if you're paying a player like this, would line up at some point with other investments. And it's like, yes, that is true. But the idea that these like employees who also were defrauded by this company, you know what I mean? Like, these people who are working there assume the company is probably legit. And these people, these sources that are talking to Pablo Torre anonymously, like the fact that they would take these payments that were lined up and then outline this whole thing about Uncle Dennis being mad that Kawhi is not getting his payments. And then, there's I believe there was some kind of messaging that people had about Wong investing and then that being communicated to people in Aspiration. And then it lines up with that payment that they've been complaining about and waiting for, with that coupled with the fact that they had no money to pay.
Yeah.
It's pretty serious. Like, I don't know.
So
I don't know how
Cuban is. They take his investment because they had no money. So they fired 20% of their staff and they took his investment and they paid Kawhi Leonard finally 2 months late, 9 days after Dennis Wong put money into them for the first time. Like, okay. Yeah, so kind of same. Like, I was already like, this is very sus to me, especially right after Pablo's initial reporting when the Boston Sports Journal came up with the additional reporting that Kawhi had another $20 million in stock. And I was like, okay, that is way closer to the amount that Steve Ballmer put in now. Like, my ears are perked way up. Although I was already suspicious of the whole thing because of the no-show nature of Kawhi's contract. Like, why is this company giving Kawhi more than 4 times as much money as every other celebrity endorsement they have combined to do absolutely nothing? Right?
Yeah. Can I just say one thing about that really quickly, and then we'll keep going? Just because Poppin said, he's talking about the Clippers and Warriors as being on the spectrum of this, but he also asked, is it fair to say the CBA has led to this situation? And
no, because this has all happened. This is all predating, like, Kawhi's contract with Aspiration is predating the enactment of the new CBA. The new CBA was enacted in June of 2023.
Yeah.
And even like the contours of that CBA were not, like, sometimes what's going to be in it exactly. As we've detailed on the show in past episodes, that CBA was not released to teams until 10 days before free agency in 2023. And yes, there were some details coming out about what had been negotiated. Obviously, like, the governors are in on it. So it's not like ownership doesn't know like what's going to be in it. But I'm talking about some of the stuff that's coming out in this reporting are like 1 and 2 years before that. So the new CBA, like, okay, does Steve Ballmer, think, okay, there's a new CBA coming down and there's going to be a lot more pressure on teams because there's going to be more cap constraints or whatever. So we've got to do whatever we can to keep Kawhi happy. Well, obviously, like, they gave him a max contract, so that just is what it is. There's nothing else that he could have done there. I don't think this has anything to do with the new CBA.
It is interesting though that if someone were to try something like this, where you can't just spend as much into the luxury tax as you want.
Right.
If you were to try to like spend to get an advantage in the CBA, it'd have to be something along these lines.
No, I just mean that I don't think that it impacted whether like the series of events that happened in this case. I actually do think that it's very important that the league gets this right, does a thorough investigation. And I mean, we have a pretty thorough investigation that appears to have been done by this reporter, and gets the punishment right, because there's going to be more incentive than ever to do this type of stuff going forward because of the new CBA. But I don't think the new CBA impacted this particular series of events.
Yeah, and I also, the reason why I wanted to bring this up and kind of like interrupted your flow there was just because I thought, there was reported that Kawhi had been asking for these kinds of things from other teams like the Raptors and other teams that had been, interested in him. And maybe that'll be confirmed later or whatever through this investigation. But if he was always asking for these kinds of things, then it wasn't really to do with the CBA. It's just he wants these endorsements and he doesn't want to show up, and he wants a team that's going to find a way to give that to him.
And this guy, like what you're talking about with Kawhi in his 2019, this is his 2019 free agency. This is what was investigated by the NBA because a bunch of owners were like, hey, Kawhi's team is asking for all this improper stuff. Toronto especially was very put off by that and kind of led the charge, but other owners were mad enough that the NBA investigated at the time. And that's how we got that quote from Adam Silver about cap circumvention being a cardinal sin. That came out of that investigation that didn't yield any fruit at the time. But Adam Silver said, this is so serious that if any additional evidence comes up, we will reopen the case. And that's where we're at now in 2025. 6 years later. That's so crazy to think about. Kawhi's been a Clipper for 6 years.
Yeah, same with LeBron on the Lakers. I can't believe it's been so long. Have you seen anything about this? We have Kugel channel saying Ballmer's last investment was much higher share price.
That's what I was going to get, was a screenshot about that exact thing. But I do have it in the notes, and we're going to talk about that. Let me pull up that bookmark here. Okay, so let's talk about the newest reporting from Pablo Torre, and this is going to be the fourth installment of Oh, okay.
Family interruption.
Yes, family interruption. What was I talking about? Yes, this is actually the fourth installment in Pablo's series, because I forgot that his first follow-up was not the Dennis Wong reporting. It was the episode that came 2 days after the initial one, where he talked for it was an hour and a half cut from a 3-hour-long conversation with Mark Cuban, who apparently has like his entire life to just talk about this thing with Steve Ballmer, because it's he was had enough time to spend with Pablo in that initial podcast, and has been on Twitter talking about it since. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what does this guy do all day to run his business? Like, I have to ask that question. So I do this podcast, and it's a lot of work. Obviously, it's different when you're just a guest, and I love just being a guest. You can just show up and just talk, right? But you wouldn't know your thing, your stuff, and like do all that kind of thing. Spending all day on Twitter is like something I do when I don't have literally anything else to do, and I would have just thought that Mark Cuban had other things to do. But we're going to talk about him, because. Right. So that interview was Pablo's second episode. Then he talks about Dennis Wong in episode 3 of this series on the Kawhi Leonard Clippers alleged cap circumvention case. But his most recent episode that dropped this morning is all about answering some of the questions that Mark Cuban raised in his last appearance with Pablo and online on Twitter. Right? Because Mark Cuban basically spent a like healthy chunk of his interview with Pablo Torre, talking about how, look, like there's no way that this $50 million investment from Ballmer is like connected to the Kawhi thing. The best and like easiest way for the Clippers to have, done this kind of cap circumvention would have been to buy up a bunch of carbon credits from Aspiration and just used that to funnel cash into Kawhi's account instead of having, Ballmer invest personally and all that stuff. Just as a side note to that, my thought is like maybe Ballmer would like to keep Clippers and Clippers named stuff away from anything related to this, just in case something does come out and he doesn't want the actual franchise implicated. Maybe he could be personally implicated, and it's the Clippers would still get punished for a thing like that. But there's a reason you might want to keep things separate, and obviously it would be difficult for Steve Ballmer to buy his own personal carbon credits, although lots of billionaires do that, especially because they want to offset their private jet emissions, or at least, pretend like they do. But yeah, everything in this episode is about all of the things that the Clippers and Steve Ballmer apparently did at various points throughout this saga, the actual saga with Aspiration and Kawhi, to try to make up for the fact that Aspiration had blown through all of their initial investments, including Steve Ballmer's initial $50 million. And we're starting to be late on these payments, including in the case with Dennis Wong having to come in allegedly and save the day for Kawhi's very, very late at the time, almost $2 million payment. But also, apparently, Steve Ballmer putting money into the company at a time when nobody else was. And I'm talking about after Dennis Wong. Because the new reporting from Pablo this morning revealed that Steve Ballmer put more money into Aspiration. And I'm not talking about $2 million. I'm talking about $10 million, which, I don't know, I guess is pocket change to Steve Ballmer. After every big investor stopped putting money into this company. Institutional investors were out. Other big money investors were not putting additional money into this company at this point. And this point that I'm talking about is going to be around spring of 2023, right? So this is the point where it's like, oh, in the months leading up to the signing of the new CBA, for anybody that wanted to make that connection there. And this is after Dennis Wong had put in money in December of 2022. And yeah, so the ball is rolling at this point. But why? He got the same financial disclosures that Dennis Wong did about the company being in default. Like, basically, you're never seeing this money again. Why are you putting money into this failing company at this point? And not just a little bit of money. This is $10 million is a pretty major cash infusion for a company that, I don't know, at this point, I can't imagine had a ton of employees. They were basically a brokerage firm, right? And they had already laid off a ton of staff, gone through multiple rounds of layoffs at that point.
Yeah, and it's so similar to the amount that was owed to Kawhi. It was what, $200K above what he was owed, and that was
the Dennis Wong one. I'm talking about the one from this morning, the reporting from this morning about the additional, Dennis Wong put that money in December and Kawhi got paid in December. Kawhi's payments start being late again because Aspiration's out of money. And Steve Ballmer, despite nobody else putting money into this company at this point, and already alarm bells are ringing. We're talking about early 2023 where nobody's been indicted or anything yet, but federal agencies are starting to circle because they're investigating the fact that this company's a fraud, and their founder, Joe Sandberg, who at this point has already pled guilty to, at this point today in 2025, has pled guilty to wire fraud. But they were already starting to investigate. And Steve Ballmer's like, sure, here's an additional $10 million that nobody else is giving you. Why?
Yeah, I mean, they have to explain this. It's what the investigation should be looking into and the questions they should be asking. And if they did know the state of that company, why would they be putting money in knowing they likely wouldn't get it back unless they knew they just had to get money to Kawhi? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a truly wild saga, and I really highly recommend everybody go listen to all 4 of these installments from Pablo, but honestly, especially today, because it was a very information dense episode.
Yeah, I haven't
And I
had a
only
chance to
touched on-
watch this latest one yet, so.
I only touched on the one thing because it was like, why is Steve Ballmer still putting money into this company at that late a date? Like
Yeah,
the
and how much
relationship
did he
between
know?
Aspiration and the Clippers seems to be like way too tight. There's also in March 2023, the LA Clippers putting money into this company supposedly for carbon credits, and you're like, I don't believe you at this point because nobody else is putting money into this company. But I didn't even mention there's a former CEO of this company emerging from the depths to try to refute the allegation that Kawhi's contract was a no-show contract. He's like, no, he definitely had obligations. And he came out on Twitter to tweet about this and also tweet out an article that he wrote about it. And my response was just, why in the last 3 weeks has nobody been not even able to just produce a thing that Kawhi did for this company? I dare you.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why are you coming out to right now to say, oh my gosh, this is a no-show contract. This wasn't a no-show contract actually, and we did everything by the book.
I get that you can kind of dispute that on some degree, but he didn't actually do anything. So it's not that they've shown. So it doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't have him do something. And wasn't there a source that said that they had plans in place for Kawhi, but then it was communicated to them that wasn't going to be the case? I feel like I saw something about that, but
no, I don't remember anything about communications with Kawhi.
No, there was one of the anonymous people when he was being interviewed by Pablo was saying that the marketing people had some plans with Kawhi, and that they were expecting it was going to be a normal endorsement, and then that wasn't the case. Right,
and then it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know where that communication came in that he wasn't going to do anything. But
right, exactly. I don't know. Was it from his side, or was it from higher up in Aspiration being no, don't ask Kawhi to do anything? That's the thing with all of this is even if you thought the initial reporting was not enough, it's weird that Kawhi had this no-show contract.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that's they can't really explain it. And it makes all the other sort of alternative explanations sound particularly silly.
Yeah, it would be quite a coincidence if this all was just at the same time, where they're investing money in the same company that gave it to Kawhi. I don't know. And it all hinges on how much you think Ballmer didn't know about it and how stupid he would be to think that this company could have gotten away with it. But could he have foreseen that they were going to go bankrupt? It's, that's the question with it all. And I'm excited to see Pablo continue to feud with Mark Cuban. And one of them is maybe going to look pretty bad once something ever gets confirmed with this law firm that's investigating this, which I don't know what they're going to end up putting out, and if they're going to definitively say this was cap circumvention or not, or if it was just the league interpreted it despite the Clippers' inability to adequately explain this. Maybe they'll just conclude that, but maybe they won't because they don't want to punish Ballmer. So we'll see.
Oh, that's the other part of this story is that Ballmer is apparently the chair of the auditing committee for the Board of Governors, which is Chef's kiss.
Isn't it like involved with financial fair play or something like that?
Yes.
That board, yeah.
I wonder if that's the same position that reviews sponsorship agreements. There's so much in this most recent episode, including like language from I forget if it's from the NBA or from the Aspiration contract that basically explicitly states that like I think it's from the NBA that all like deals over like a certain size or something have to be reviewed by the NBA and are otherwise like null and void until they are expressly approved. So there's a lot there. I highly recommend like go listen to Pablo. Anything else that you wanted to say about this story?
No, let's go to the next one.
Okay. I need to put you on the spot for just a second because I have my own technical difficulty right now. I need to run and grab a charger before my computer dies. I know exactly where it is. So just give me like 30 seconds. I'll be right back and we'll entertain the audience here.
All right, let's see. Comments. What do you got in the chat? Poppin says Cuban did the same with Dirk. Also, you know, the Mavs did have some scandal around workplace grievances and like misogyny and sexism within the Mavs. And Mark Cuban at that point was talking about how he's too busy as a billionaire and as an owner to know that much about those kinds of things. And Ballmer's kind of using the same language to get away with this, where as soon as something bad happens, these NBA owners can talk about how they're just so busy, have so much to do, so much money going in and out that they couldn't possibly keep track of all of these things. So it's a little bit silly, and we've seen this rhetoric before. So it's interesting that Cuban used the same type of language, and he is the one that's defending Steve Ballmer. But you know, public perception of Cuban is not great on Twitter right now. Like, I don't think the average Twitter fan is enjoying Cuban coming to Ballmer's defense, to be fair, as I feel like most people are kind of against owners. Like, we love to hate the Cronkies and talk about how they're cheap and don't spend on players. I'm sure other fans of other teams have similar sentiments. It is funny that Ballmer is seen as one of the positive owners of the league. Like, he's excited at the game. He's excited about the new stadium. He's trying to build the new culture with the Clippers. Kawhi is relatively well liked because he has won 2 finals MVPs with the Spurs and the Raptors. But I think I've been vocal about this, so there's questions about his motivations and like his needs from the team. So some people are shocked by the fact that it's the Clippers that's having this downfall, that it's their reputation that's having this downfall. But I don't think that too surprising. Poppin says, do we really have to talk Nuggets? I want basketball content, but I feel the situation right now so crazy. Well, we definitely have talked about it a lot. We talked about it on the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, before Miroslav came on. And there's some new info that have come out. But we haven't talked about the Nuggets in a while, so it would be good to get back to them.
All right. Found an outlet. We're all good.
Oh, yeah. Ballmer took those fans to Game 7, and everyone was... Yeah, people liked that, and they liked the little props and horse masks that they had at whatever their stadium's called. I don't even remember.
Too, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's like, I get that people like kind of liked Ballmer in a sense, but if this is true.
Oh, yeah. Like, whatever. I'm not saying that like some people floated like, oh, could they take the team away from him? It's like, no. I mean, Joe, like, they had so much evidence when it came to the Joe Smith capture convention that the Timberwolves got hit for. Took away like 5 first-round draft picks, and then it got reduced to 3 later on. They got some back. But they never took the team away from Glenn Taylor. Like, I'm not necessarily for that, especially because I'm like, you never know what kind of, something you'll get on the other end. But you have to send a message that like nobody is no one owner is going to be above the league, above the rules, especially in a situation where, like I said before, in the age of the new CBA, there's more pressure on teams to do cap circumvention. So you need to make it so that it's like not it doesn't make sense to do that. You need to make the calculus on it so punitive that teams like really think 4 times before they, do something like this, because you're dealing with a class of people in these billionaire owners that get whatever they want. Even the poor ones, like in the case of the Buss family, they got LeBron. They got Anthony Davis. Like, they had to give up some stuff to get an Anthony Davis after the league basically paid them, right? But they get what they want, and the rules often don't apply to them. That's why, that's why, like, Steve Ballmer has been fined for lower level occurrences of this same infraction. In the case of, what was it that they were? Well, it wasn't cap circumvention, but they were basically offering stuff to like DeAndre Jordan, I think was one from in the 2010s. I think Puzzle Channel says, how can anybody be shocked? Ballmer has been fighting the cap rules for years. Well, yeah, he's the richest owner in the league. Of course he has. And the Clippers are one of the 2 teams that inspired the new CBA because of how much they were spending and willing to spend on players, right? So my point is just, you need to send a message. And that's like, that feels obvious. It feels like if we still had David Stern as a commissioner, that would be obvious. Other issues with David Stern, right? Of course, I'm not saying that Adam Silver should be exactly like David Stern, but I'm saying Adam Silver needs to like take this seriously if you want the league to be taken seriously. I mean, that's all I've got to say on this.
It could go either way. Hurricanes pointing out the Donaghy scandal, the ref, the gambling and all that, I believe. That was so long ago. I was talking about David Stern. But yeah, it's like no matter what the evidence is, a commissioner could decide to do whatever they want. We know the NBA has been inconsistent in their punishments when it comes to even players. I mean, sometimes public outcry is so strong that they do have to do something like making the Clippers, what was his name that sold the Clippers? I forgot his name.
Donald Sterling.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I hope there's a punishment, and I hope they find some, like clear. I want a clear answer about this, because like, while I do think it looks very bad for them and I'm ready to almost say they're guilty, there is going to be an investigation and they're going to put out some kind of conclusion. So,
I'm ready to say they're guilty. This isn't a criminal court where the punishment is like taking your freedom away. I watch trials all the time where the standard of, or the burden of proof is, like civil court, where it's like, you need to be 50% plus 1 sure that it's this interpretation versus this interpretation, that this thing happened. And I'm already like way there, right? I'm even above, there's everyone thinks about criminal court where the standard is like beyond a reasonable doubt, but there's all kinds of different standards that you can have in even in the court system, which this isn't. This is the NBA, this is the league. They can kind of decide to do whatever they want. That's basically how it's written in the CBA, and they won't do that. They're going to want a little bit more proof than like, this is like, 40% and we kind of side with it, so we're going to go with it. They're going to want a little bit more than that, but I think we're way past that at this point. At this point, at least, if it were me running the investigation, I would say it is, I'm feeling I have enough evidence to be like guilty of this thing, or you're liable for cap circumvention, and it is on the Clippers to show me that it wasn't that. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Old school football player says, do you think Kawhi's contract would be voided, and would he go to Denver? I don't think his contract would be voided from this. I think that would be very unpopular with the players and, the NBA Players Association, of course. I think it'd be like a fine. It would be maybe game suspension if they find Kawhi somehow involved with this. It'll be a fine for Ballmer, maybe draft picks. I don't know. I would love him in Denver, though, and more cheaper than his current contract. But yeah, I'll be a Kawhi supporter if he wants to come here, although I think he has hurt a lot, so that I would be a little nervous too.
I mean, if he wants to come here for a minimum, like, I don't give it. Like, you could miss half the season. You could miss 80 games. If you're healthy for like 20 games in the playoffs, then we're good.
He'll come for a minimum, but we have to get, he needs some ball arena sponsorship where he doesn't have to do anything. So,
right, because this aspiration thing, I feel like the league, even if they didn't find cap circumvention, the fact that these deals are supposed to be approved expressly by the league, and this doesn't seem to meet the standard of like an okay contract to have, just the $28 million from Aspire and Aspiration. I don't even know about the language in the deal that led to Kawhi getting another $20 million in stock from this company. I wonder if he sold that stock because obviously they're belly under, and that those shares mean nothing at this point. That's something I want to come out of this reporting. That's another question that I have for sure. All right, let's move on to our second news story, which is about the Nuggets' very own Michael Malone joining ESPN's NBA Countdown. Will, how'd you feel when you saw the news about Moach being one of the devils over at Disney?
Whoa, I like that. I was excited for him. I didn't know where he was going to go. Obviously, when he got fired, it was mixed emotions with the team. The team didn't seem to be in a great state, and we've already kind of litigated his firing and all that, and made peace with it. I didn't know if he was going to end up with San Antonio or in New York or wherever he's going to go to coach. He's taking this media job. I think he's great with the media. If you watch his press conferences, he's a great interview. He's very charismatic. I think like he's funny, but he knows enough about basketball that he could talk about it in a way that I think is entertaining to audiences. So I was happy with him. I think he's going to do a good job. I just am like so over ESPN, and I'm so over Disney and ESPN at this point that I don't know how much I'm going to watch NBA Countdown at all. So that kind of sucks. The timing of his hiring and what else is going on in the world is unfortunate. So yeah.
Oh, true. Good point. I hadn't even made that connection because obviously ABC is owned by Disney, and ABC is censoring their own late night talk show hosts to cow to their local broadcast affiliates, which, to be fair, that's a lot of money to be losing. But it's like, okay, you're going to suspend the show? That's crazy. Because he didn't say anything crazy. And even if he had, but there are some things that cross the line. What he said did not.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about this. Obviously, I don't have great feelings about ESPN. They have been making some changes around there, which I'm curious about, like Michael Malone joining NBA Countdown. It's like, that's interesting. Tim Legler is joining the analysis crew during in games, and
I was excited
in
about
terms
that
of
too.
Like being on the A team for that. So that's also exciting for me. I think it's weird. I will say, we didn't talk about this on the show, but at the time of that Tim Legler promotion, it was announced that like Doris Burke is being demoted. And it's like, everybody knows that, but like, why would you report it out like that? Not report it out like that. I know why they reported it out like that. It's because somebody told them to report it like that. The Athletic, I think, was the first on this story. And I was like, that's weird. Because remember when ESPN was going through all those big shakeups that included Van Gundy being fired and Mark Jackson being fired and Doris Burke like first ascending. And there was a lot of change that was happening within the company, including some people moving down in spots. I don't remember any stories about that were sort of headlined X person is getting demoted. It's just like, which is like, everybody knows that's what's happening. But I think the fact that it's leaked / reported out there, the combination of the two, is indicative of like somebody wants a message sent about what happened here that I find I find interesting. And honestly, after all that, like I would feel some type of way if I were Doris Burke, even if I personally like didn't really love Doris Burke on the, on the crew. Like it was, she was just kind of whatever. She was hardly the worst part about ESPN. Like she's not even like a top 5 issue that I had with ESPN or whatever. But yeah, so that's what is brought to mind by this story for me, is the whole like, it's kind of weird what happened with Doris, and the fact that she's still with the company. Because when you have somebody as like prominent as Doris is, like I remember watching Doris on the sidelines when I was in elementary school watching games, when I was in middle school watching games, right? Always interviewing LeBron on the sidelines, all of that stuff. She's got this like storied like history associated with her. And I was about to call it an unceremonious exit from ESPN, but she's still there. I'd want to leave. I would be like, hey, Amazon, you guys are trying to like be more positive with your coverage of the game. As the head of Amazon Sports, I think it's head of Amazon Sports or Amazon Sports Media, came out at one of these big media sports business conferences, said, yeah, we want to talk about the game more positively and like make the coverage about how like amazing like the players of our time are and all of this stuff. I'd be like, hey, I'm Doris Burke. Like, hey, I love talking about players positively, sometimes to Grace's chagrin, right? And I would want to just like get a fresh start somewhere, because it almost seems like with the way that, again, that story came out, it seemed like somebody, at least one person, had it out for her or had it in for her. Because like, why would it be sort of leaked out that way to multiple outlets? But I remember The Athletic being the first to it.
Yeah, my only issues with Doris Burke was just I thought the way that she would compliment players and talk about how great they are just didn't seem very genuine, and it went on for too long in the games.
It would go on for a long time. I thought it was genuine, but I was just like, man, she's like really in it.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it did go on for too long.
There's the flip side of that, where people criticize the media for not hyping up the game enough, and that a lot of it's negative. It's biased in a negative way to kind of create more engagement. So it's cool, you're hyping up players, but
it's not like it's her plus 2 other people that have that same disposition. So she maybe feels like, this is my role on this 3-person commentary team, is being like the positive one about the thing. And then you have Richard Jefferson and Mike Green or whoever's doing the color for the game that day.
I also do not like Richard Jefferson, but
that's for another day. We're not touching that one right now. We can't do it.
Can I briefly mention though that, did you see this Katy Winge news about how she's just going to be sideline reporting?
That. Yeah.
It was seen on her Instagram. Someone asked her a question about how she got on the, to fill in for Hastings for games sometimes. And she said, I want to clarify that I'm going to be only on the sidelines now, doing sideline reporting, and then also doing hosting in the, like, I don't know what they call that, like, studio. The new studio that's in Ball Arena, the altitude. The lounge that they have where they host the show from. She's going to be doing that.
It's almost like Nuggets After Dark is how I think about it.
Yeah. And like, it's cool because fans can go and like physically go there and watch it, I think, if you have the right like access. Mm-hmm. But I'm sad because I really like Katy Winge calling the Nuggets games. Not everyone has to agree with that. I personally enjoyed it. So I don't know if that was her decision. I don't know what the deal is with altitude, but
I don't know. But I can't imagine that somebody with her experience, history, all that stuff, would be offered the opportunity to continue to be part of calling games and be like, no. Right? Like that sounds, I could be wrong, but that sounds crazy to me.
Well, maybe they're not paying her like someone who does that job. And she's like, I'm commenting on games. And you guys aren't paying me like someone who does. You're just paying me like a sideline reporter. So if you're not going to do that, this is all speculation.
Very fair. Well, this is all wild speculation. That's definitely one plausible alternative explanation.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing on the Michael Malone thing, I just wanted to note the ESPN analyst to coach pipeline that we've had over the last couple of years. Jeff Van Gundy was obviously there for a very long time before he got back into coaching, but he did obviously go back with the Clippers starting last season. You had Doc Rivers join as an analyst for half a season before the Bucks begged him to take over for Adrian Griffin. Right before the trade deadline in 2024, as well as obviously the Lord and Savior of the Los Angeles Lakers, JJ Redick, going from podcaster to podcaster / ESPN analyst to NBA head coach. All of those guys got hired within the same 365-day span. So I wonder if Malone saw that and was like, is that how I don't think that them being on ESPN had basically anything to do with them getting coaching jobs, except maybe JJ, though I think his podcast with LeBron probably had more to do with that, if there was any influence of him as a media figure on his ability to get a head coaching job in the NBA. But yeah, hope that luck, rubs off for Malone so that he can get a good job and hopefully not one with a team that I hate.
Yep. All right, let's get into this.
All right. Yes. Segment 1. How versatile are the Denver Nuggets really? I wanted to break this down into two different sorts of discussions because I think the question of versatility can be one where you're talking about either a team being versatile in terms of just the personnel that they have. And this is a discussion that you and I have had before, Will. You and I, and with guests, when we're talking about how to build a roster, are you looking for a bunch of just dudes that can each do something that when you need that thing, you can plug them onto the floor to help give you a bunch of different lineup options, right? And then the other part of the discussion is players being versatile, because the other way that your team can manifest itself as being versatile is presenting different problems to opponents is by having the players that you have, not the few players that you have, being themselves able to play at a high level in different ways. For example, something that is often cited in the case of Nikola Jokic, he can pass, dribble, shoot, play back to the basket. He can play on the perimeter. The dribbling is kind of question mark, but the option is there, right? And that kind of thing. But it doesn't just extend to your stars, although stars are often the most versatile players, because how do you become a star? You do a lot of things at a really high level. But role players as well. And especially when you're contrasting the most versatile role players to those that are one-trick ponies and often have issues maybe come playoff time, because as Michael Malone once said, specialists don't play in the playoffs, right? So I want to talk about how versatile the new look Denver Nuggets are going to be. And this is not a discussion that is exclusive to their playoff chances or anything like that. It's just sort of generally speaking, how is this team going to play, and how does the versatility of the players on a team, impact what that looks like over the course of a 100-game season, if we're talking about regular season plus playoffs. All right. So the first question I've got here is, what are the different looks that Denver could theoretically trot out versus how many will they actually use, right? We've talked on this show, a friend of the show, Ryan Blackburn, has been talking about lineups all summer. The DNVR guys have been talking about their favorite lineups, especially for the bench. I think that that's like the main sort of set of lineup combinations that people have been toying around with this summer, because we have so many new bench players. The question of like, what will the non-Jokic minutes look like, has been a big one. But this question, I think, is more relevant in the context of the Jokic minutes. What will it look like when Jokic is out there with not 4 other starters? Okay. And my first question to you, Will, is the all offense lineup or lineups. When you think of a lineup that is like, this is our best lineup that absolutely nobody should be able to stop, what do you think of?
I still think it has to be heavily leaned into the starting 5. That doesn't mean that, like, if Christian Brown's in that, is that included in the all offense look? It could be, because
that's a question for you.
He's a great finisher. He can play in transition. Like, his rim finishing's on another level. I don't know where his shooting's going to be. It's a question mark. And I do think we need more shooting. And I think the team thinks that they've addressed that with THJ and Cam Johnson, but he's just replacing Mike, who was a great shooter. So you got Jokic, Murray for sure, Cam Johnson for sure, Aaron Gordon for sure. It's just a matter of who the 5th guy is. Is it going to be CB for the all offense look? And is it worth it to have CB still in that spot? Because he is pretty good on defense, and you do need some defense, even if you're trying to go all offense, which I think overall is going to be like the Nuggets philosophy. I promised old school football plays that I would come to his comment that he commented at the beginning of the show. He thinks the Nuggets are overrated, even as a Nuggets fan. Jokic is out of shape, not good on defense. Cam, not good at defense. Murray, not good at defense. Brown and Gordon, decent. I think it's fair to question how good the Nuggets defense is going to be. Obviously, we didn't sign like this amazing, number 1 screen navigator, perimeter defender, like a prime KCP type player. Christian Brown's still trying to learn and figure that role. But I would say those starting 4 for sure. And then if Julian can grow, though, and you put Julian at 2 in times and play him just to get more spacing, I could see something like that. I just don't know that I have full faith that it's going to happen.
So I understand wanting to lean more into the starters, but I wanted to think more about those lineups that come in mid first quarter, mid third quarter, might be playing when Jokic is back on the floor, when the bench, like when he comes back off the bench, but maybe because you staggered some starters at the bench, you don't have all of 5 of them out there immediately. You'll have them out there to close. But say one of the ones I was thinking of, and I do think that bringing up Julian is a really good point, because if the whole idea is to add shooting and Julian doesn't play, is it just Tim Hardaway Jr. replacing Julian?
Yeah.
So the question for that is really, can Julian and Tim Hardaway Jr. play together? Right? And that's a question defensively.
I don't think so. I don't know. I think the defense is going to be too suspect. Like, I don't know.
Even off the bench, because it's like those lineups aren't going to be good defensively anyway when you've got Val out there and whatever. And maybe you want to go all offense for the bench. So we could talk about then those non-Jokic minutes as well, where it's like we've tried to lean into this like defensive identity, and it's like, yeah, they get opponents to miss shots, but they can't rebound for shit. And then Val will be a better rebounder than like Zeke Naji was, for example, right? But will they be able to force as many like misses with him out there? I don't know, right? So maybe what you should be leaning into is like, let's just have an unstoppable like bench lineup out there, as close to it as possible, and maybe that involves Jamal, Julian, Tim Hardaway Jr. somebody and Val all playing together. Who's that for? Because I don't really think we have any for sure, like surefire offensively oriented fours. Like someone might say like Zeke for defense, even though the rebounding sucks. But you're like, well, we have Val out there, whatever. Would you say let's stagger Jamal and Aaron and go all offense? And it's pretty small because it's 3 guard, but you've got a beefy front line with AG and Val both out there for controlling the glass. And then you just hope like we can get these guys to all like play together, and then we have like the spaciest spaced floor that Valanciunas could have, even with AG out there.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably the most reliable option to do that. It's just it sucks because you don't want to have to rely on that so much. But I guess in certain instances, you definitely can. And he's going to be the best 4 that also has offensive upside, especially with this shooting, right, if that continues. So that'd definitely be true. I also think about Cam. It kind of sucks because he's a little bit shorter than MPJ, right? So he can't necessarily just fill in at the 4 like MPJ.
Right.
We're theorizing we would love MPJ at the 4 a lot, and he didn't.
If you want to upgrade that lineup, though, and this is where it comes in, where you're like, well, do we just stagger 3 starters? Do you just swap in Julian for Cam? And then you've got Jamal, Cam, AG all out there with Tim Hardaway Jr. and Val. And that's probably a defensive upgrade, like Julian over, like anybody over Julian, probably. Like, is Julian just the weakest defender on the roster right now?
Julian?
Yeah.
Probably. Trying to think of anyone else.
I guess Hunter, but like honestly, they have the same weaknesses.
I want to see how
has some like I think Hunter probably has a little. Yeah, it's probably Julian or Hunter, but Hunter's not going to be in the rotation, so we can kind of disregard.
Yeah, I'm more serious minute individuals, and right. I always thought Julian had the tools to be somewhat decent on defense. He has length. He should have more speed. He just never's in the right position. He's fouling.
The tools trap.
I keep waiting on him to just put it together, and I don't know if it'll happen.
I mean, he's going into his 3rd year, to be fair. When you say waiting on him to put it together, it's like, maybe he could. Maybe he does take that leap. And I do think that if he's going to play, he's just going to have to, because if Julian's going to play, especially early in the season, he's going to need to be able to play next to Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm sorry if you guys can hear crying child in the background.
Oh boy.
Somebody's having a tantrum.
Screaming. What do you think Bruce plays into this? Would he be in any of your lineups?
So that's the other question, is like, when you say all offense, are you talking about all shooting? Because you could also just swap out Julian for Bruce in that instance and leave Cam with Jokic. And I think you could say, I think of Bruce as a good enough second side attacker that he's part of my all offense lineup. And that gives you a lot more.
Oh man.
Somebody doesn't want to take a bath. A lot more defensive versatility in that instance too. So that lineup, and this is the part of the thing with this is that you're talking about, is Jamal going to stagger at all? I've heard people ask that question. I'm like, yes, he's going to stagger. And I also think he should, because we don't have another true ball handler that's going to be in the everyday rotation. Pickett is there as an option. We'll see what happens once preseason starts, once training camp starts. Maybe he earns a spot to start the season, and that would maybe change how you think about some of these configurations. But I'm not throwing Val to the wolves by not having another true ball handler out there with him. So Jamal's going to be out there and Val's going to be out there. So you think of this question about like, how do we build enough offense around these guys while also not insulating them defensively, because I don't think you can insulate Jamal defensively, if I'm being honest, especially with Val out there, but more like, let's not exacerbate the issue. All right. Let's move on to the next versatile look I would like us to contemplate here, which is double big. We heard a lot coming out of Las Vegas Summer League about how David Adelman wanted to play more double big with both Jokic and Val together. This isn't like something in passing that they just kind of say. And they could be lying straight to our faces, just like Ben Wallace did about the summer plans, of course. But they would be doing just that, because Adelman was very explicit about the fact that he wanted to play Val with Jokic some to get him more minutes. And obviously, I think everybody's a bit scarred from the Nurkic experience, the Jokic plus Nurkic experience. And we've gone over that on a previous show, how the numbers weren't actually as bad as people remember in terms of like on-court net rating and things like that. But my question is, how much will it matter that neither Val or Jokic is particularly mobile if they're trying to play together on the floor?
I think it might matter. Obviously, Adelman's not going to play double big in a situation, a matchup that wouldn't make any sense, where it would be really a bad idea with any questions about the mobility. So you have to play something against similarly big opponents, I would say, or at least a lineup that you could really take advantage of that couldn't just like torch them, that the size would be an advantage. But I think like, because, people are always talking about how Jokic can't be this rim protector. So what would the defense look like just having a little bit more of a prototypical rim protector next to him? Not that Jonas is a next level vertical,
Jonas is like a worse
high jumping.
He's like a worse defender than Jokic at the paint. It's actually because of like DA's willingness and not just willingness, but like enthusiasm apparently for going zone is the only reason that I'm even thinking about this as like a viable thing, because I can't imagine Jokic or Val kind of having to consistently defend out on the perimeter. But when you think about the way that the Rockets do it too, with Şengün and Steven Adams, Şengün is a bit more mobile than either Jokic or Val, because he's both smaller and a bit more fleet of foot. But he's not the fastest big in the association or anywhere close to it. And Steven Adams certainly isn't either. But the Rockets were able to maintain elite defensive efficiency by going zone and this is the key word here, and dominating the defensive glass. A lot of people talked about the offensive rebounding of those units, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you can be an elite defensive rebounding unit, your defensive floor is so high. You might not have the best lineup out there, but if you can close possessions when you do force misses, that's huge. And so my question is like, how much will that matter in the scheme that Adelman wants to play? How much will the lack of foot speed for both those guys matter? And will they be able to execute on the glass? Because that's, I think, if they can't execute on the glass, there's no point in those lineups, in my opinion.
I don't see why they wouldn't be able to execute on the glass, just theoretically, because they're both good rebounders in general. I would just be more worried about other things, like the foot speed not being there and it just not making sense. Originally, I mean, we've never even had a big to even consider playing with Jokic before Val, because the offense just would be atrocious to me. But Val's at least good enough on offense to hold up in a double big lineup with Jokic, and I would be more willing to try it at least. But the defense is just, I mean, I'm still worried about it. they're just
I think
big
I'm
and
more worried about the offense than the defense, to be honest, because I'm just kind of like, what will that lineup run? Like, I don't even know what they would do. Whereas I can at least picture like what things they could try to do defensively. I don't know what they would do on offense. And that's not necessarily to say it would be bad. It's just like I can't picture it without seeing it in front of me.
with Val's 3-point shot not being like a very understood thing at all. Like sometimes he shoots threes and they go in, but he's not like this spacing 5. That around Jokic doesn't seem very great. But I could see something where you could start Val out on a certain defender to then, run actions with Jokic to get a matchup that you want, whereas you couldn't with Val you couldn't otherwise if you didn't have him in. Something like along those lines. But
just using his screening ability and the fact that other teams can't hide other small players on him to kind of manipulate matchups, I think is
something like that. That's where my mind goes to. But
I mean, I have to go back because I admit that something I probably neglected to do last season, and we can talk about our like new season resolutions. Maybe that's what we'll do next week. Is watch more about the mechanics of how the Rockets did their double big, because everyone talked about the offensive rebounding, and that's the thing that sort of jumped off the screen. But that's not all that was going on in those possessions, or at least that wasn't the only goal that the Rockets had. Was like completely like grab 50% of available offensive rebounds, which is what was happening when Steven Adams was on the floor, which is insane. I wish we had him. But Val, you've got the opportunity. You got the opportunity to do something special. All right. We talked about double big. What is Denver's best small look? And I think relatedly to this, because I don't see a lot of our bench bigs closing games, which bench player is going to close the most games next season? And it could be for a variety of reasons. So, Will, when you think about the Nuggets, quote unquote, going small, what does that mean to you? Like, what do you picture when you hear that?
I definitely picture someone playing like lineups where the 5 is not Jokic or Val.
Okay.
So like Aaron Gordon, something like that.
So going small from the front.
Deron Holmes. Yeah. That's more what I see. Because even if you have a more like bulkier 3 and 4, I still think that can be small. I don't know that would make sense necessarily, or who that would even be. We kind of
you mean like with AG on the floor? I think if it's not Jokic or Val on the floor, that's definitely small. I think that 100% falls into the definition, regardless of anybody else you got out there. You could have AG, Deron, Peyton, Bruce, and Christian. That sounds disgusting, by the way. Although, maybe not. So we're talking about Bruce at the 1, Christian, Peyton. Oh, that spacing is nasty. Deron and AG. Like, I don't want to see. You could have those, like, that's probably the biggest small ball lineup that you could come up with, right? Am I missing someone? I guess you could sub out Deron for Zeke, who is technically bigger than Deron.
How do you feel about...
and that's still small ball. Okay.
Yeah. How do you feel about this from old school football plays? Murray, Bruce, CB, Gordon, and Deron Holmes.
Murray, Bruce. This is less gross for sure. So you're basically subbing out Jamal for Peyton. That changes the spacing picture entirely, and you go back to kind of a traditionally sized 1. I don't hate that. Yeah. I think that's a look that the Nuggets should absolutely try to develop this season and see where they can get with it at times, right? I think Val is going to play most nights, if not every night. But whenever Jokic is out, for example, and Val is starting, that's a great opportunity to try out these looks in those non-Valanciunas minutes. I like that one. I like the offense-defense mix there. That might be Denver's best small look, if I'm honest. Besides maybe... No, I think that's Denver's best small look.
I'm trying to think of it in terms of like, how could I find? I just think we don't have the personnel for this, but like a wing ball, small ball lineup, because it's like that's really the ones that to me feel the most effective in the NBA.
I think that's the closest that you get, to be honest.
Could be
because you keep your
those are
point
big
guard out there.
guys.
You still need like a dude there, and then you've got three big wings, depending on how you define big, in Christian, Bruce, and Duran, and then you've got AG at the 5.
If Holmes can live up to shooting and being able to play defense, for sure, that could work really well. If not, then you're like going to Zeke for that, and I don't know.
I think one of the, and this is my not hesitation, one of the sort of anxieties, I suppose, around trying to build lineups like this is like, how do we make it work with Peyton? Like, how do we put enough offense around him that it's still a defensive lineup, given what he needs around him in order to make those lineups viable? I think that's tough because often another player that is in our best offensive looks is AG. But when you're talking about like Peyton, you probably don't want a lot of AG with Peyton playing together unless AG is at the 5. But then you've got an undersized 5 and an undersized 4 who isn't a 4 in Peyton. And that just makes it really tough. And that sort of leads me into the next half of this discussion, which is about player versatility. And I think that the question of Peyton's versatility as a player is really going to determine how much he can play this season, just because of how many other viable guys we have that can be on the floor and aren't a big consideration you have to have in terms of like, if you want to have Bruce on the floor, like you can't surround him with like 4 defense only guys, you know that. But you're not like as worried about how he's going to fit into these different lineups as you are with Peyton, for example, right? Which is why, I mean, Bruce could not play that well this season, and I still see him playing a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think he's going to be the bench guy that closes the most games, which I'm sure wouldn't be great for Peyton. Like, I'm sure he'd love to close more games.
Yeah.
He's like, if there's a bench guy closing games, I want to be that guy. But I don't see that happening because of these questions, at least around the player that he finished last season as. And I don't know how he's going to come into this next season.
Yeah, he's the answer you would want to give in a perfect world with the makeup of this team. But I could see Bruce being the real answer because he had already been that. It's just a matter of, like you said, even if he doesn't play like he did in 23, which is probably going to be the case, how much worse would he be, let's say, than that? I still think he would close a lot of games just because he's a vet. He knows these guys. He is a versatile player. Theoretically, he can play different positions. So that's just... Or
at the very least, he's a player that isn't going to get in the way. And you kind of know that. Whereas with Peyton, you're like, okay, you have your limitations, but the thing I'm actually most worried about is, are you going to like get in the way in these lineups? And that's where a floor really comes from. And we've talked about this with Peyton ad nauseum, right? Like his floor as a player has to be higher. And the way you raise your floor is like, I mean, shooting helps, obviously, but I think not making mistakes, both defensively and offensively, like limiting your mistakes. Because if you can be an NPC out there, you could play 15, 20 minutes and nobody notices. And maybe if they lose, they look at the stat sheet and they're like, you didn't have any stats. But then he finishes like a +2 because like those lineups just were fine because nothing bad happened, if that makes sense, right? And I'm not saying that Peyton shouldn't record any stats. I think he should rebound and do all the things, right? Steals, but also just like knowing where to be and when is so much of what's going to determine not just how much Peyton plays. I'm not talking about what this means for his individual development as a player. I'm talking about what this means for Denver's versatility. Because in all of these discussions that we've had so far about the various versatile lineups that we could have, all defense, double big, if Denver's going to go double big it's going to be tough to play Peyton in those. The best small looks. In none of those lineups did we mention Peyton Watson as like a prime option. I think I did either you mentioned a lineup or I did that included Peyton, and I was just like, I don't know if that works. And that was the only one, right? Whereas Peyton Watson taking the leap to being a sixth man caliber player, as in like can play in most lineups without worrying about negative impacts, and hopefully having positive impacts on top of that because of the tools that he has at his disposal and what we know he's capable of physically. That would mean a lot for just Denver's ability to unlock even more lineups, right?
Yeah, what's like the ideal like position that he could play in this team that would help him unlock more lineups?
You tell me.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people want Peyton to play the 2, and I just don't see a lineup that I love where. Okay, let's play that game a little bit, because if Peyton's going to play the 2, you need to have more offense centered in your front court, because you're not going to get it from your backcourt, right? So you'd be in a situation where you definitely want a strong offensive backcourt partner. So it'd be Jamal, Peyton. And then for your front court, you'd probably want AG and Val. And then maybe at the 3, you could go Cam or Bruce, depending on like that. You want to toggle between offense, defense. How does that sound?
It sounds similar. Like when we were talking about what lineup might we need to put to make cover up for any issues that Val might have on defense. That was like similar to what I was thinking.
We just subbed out Christian for Peyton in that alignment where we have Jamal and AG staggering. But I honestly think, but this here comes that same question that I brought up earlier, which is normally when you want offense in your front court, you go with AG. But do you want AG and Peyton together? Probably. I wouldn't go with Bruce at the 3 there. I'd probably want Cam, but then you're in a situation where it's like, in order to play Peyton, you need 3 starters on the floor, and that's just really tough, especially early in the season, right?
Yeah. That's why I always kind of felt more playing him in a 3, because then you could have either the 4 is Aaron Gordon, where he's producing some offense, or you have a more offensive oriented backcourt. And he's tall enough to play that and play defense, and can be switchable with more matchup versatility. But it's like when I think of these lineups, or we have to name lineups, sometimes my mind just defaults him to the 2. So it's interesting, and I really never put him.
Why do you think your mind defaults him to the 2?
I think it's just because of the other players that we have on the roster, and it's just trying to fit that puzzle together.
Which is funny because we've got a bunch of like 2s on this roster, but there's like 2 of the main ones, which are Tim Hardaway Jr. and Julian. You're like, I don't know if I want them in a bunch of lineups.
You just don't automatically go there, and you're trying to find that mix of like defense and offense, and you kind of know that the defense is there, and a lot of these players that we have are offensively oriented, and it having like a defensive specialist mixed in sounds really good. It's just he's such a non-impact player on offense that it really can be detrimental so far.
So here's one look, and this isn't small ball or anything. It's just like, what is Peyton Watson's ideal lineup? I think you'd want Jamal, and I think you'd want Jokic on the floor. So let's talk about those kinds of staggers where it's, well, what are the minutes where Jamal and Jokic are both on the floor, but there aren't other starters, especially if Jamal is staggering with the bench? I guess it would be
right before they're about to sub Jokic out. I don't know. In the first
Jamal
rotation.
would have come out first at that point. So he would already be off the floor.
Jamal in for the first stagger, and sometimes they wait a while before Jokic comes out, and you're like, shouldn't he already have been subbed out?
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to try to get Yoke out by like the 10-minute mark of the first, or like the 2-minute mark, I should say, of the first, like after 10 minutes, instead of playing him the entire first quarter, especially early in the season. I think that's tough. So what I'm about to present is more of like a playoff lineup, because you're talking about a very like constrained rotation. Jamal, Jokic, Peyton, Christian, and
Jokic?
I guess it would just have to be AG, but you're trying not to go with all the starters. Then that's the thing. I get stuck with the Peyton lineups too. Just because of the level of offense that he needs around him to make that work.
This lineup is the starters, just with Watson at the 2 instead of CB, which I think anyone would probably thrive in that lineup with Jokic. I mean, it's going to be an effective lineup. It's just he's going to be the last option on offense. So it's like, I
want to see quickly what it looked like last season when Peyton played in place of Christian. I don't know that we have a huge sample size with that, especially because of all the time that AG missed. Why don't you discuss some of the other lineup ideas in the chat?
Poppin has said Jamal, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson at the 3, Holmes 4, Jokic 5. So you have, that's only 2 starters. It's a Jokic Jamal stagger, which is kind of funny and interesting. I mean, that could, it's potential. It's like, it's funny. You have these questions.
I think you can't have Jamal and Tim Hardaway Jr. playing with Jokic.
Why specifically?
Defensively, that's really tough. Peyton's basically the only defensive player in that lineup.
Yeah, the perimeter
you've got Holmes out there, but he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough, man.
It's the question too is is it play? I mean, I think it's the question's better suited for regular season, just because that's where we're going to have time to be playing Pwat until we know he's a contributor.
Then you're in a situation where if you're trying to build these Jamal plus Jokic lineups, it's like, well, Jamal's staggering. So when do you get the Jamal plus Jokic lineups with not other starters? Which is why we think about playoffs in that case.
Mm-hmm. Poppin says we had Jamal and MPJ with Jokic. But then are you just, because then we also had KCP in that mix, though. Or CB. But, but theoretically, Watson would be the defensive, anchor, if you will, on the perimeter. And
we actually have 0 lineups, 0 minutes played where Peyton played just replaced Christian with the starters last season.
Maybe it would be worth a look.
We had any from the year before.
It's just what scenario would that even happen in?
We had 17 possessions of it the year before, which makes sense because we had KCP too, so there weren't going to be a lot of opportunities for that. What would be the look? No, I'm literally just how do we create the ideal conditions for Peyton to play the 2 just with the starters, or what would it look like?
I just mean, how would that happen? Just because I feel like if CD was hurt or something,
Christian missed a game, and I don't think
Bruce would start.
Missed a game last year, did he?
Yeah, he would have to be hurt, I think, to get that lineup.
Yeah,
but I think it would be mostly okay, just because I think the other players are so good.
Yeah, my only issue was that the Peyton Watson plus 4 starters minutes were really, really bad in the playoffs. I don't doubt that they'd be good in the regular season, but they were some of our worst lineups in the playoffs, and it's not necessarily on Peyton. It was just like whenever it wasn't the 5 starters literally out there, it was a hot mess. And usually it's because it was Jamal off the floor, and we know what happened with the on-ball creation issues, especially in the OKC series.
I like this one: Jamal, Pwat, Cam, Deron Holmes, and then Val, because it's. I like a Jamal, Cam stagger.
And Cam stagger.
Like, I really want to see that. I just don't know how much they're going to do.
I love handcuffing Christian to Jamal, but this is something that we could try. You're putting a lot defensively on Peyton and rookie Deron Holmes, though. But if they can handle it, like, I think it's worth a shot.
Could Bruce fill in the one right there in that lineup?
No, don't do that. All right. Let's talk about, since we're on Peyton Watson, let's move on to the player versatility discussion here, which, as it's evident from our discussion about Peyton Watson that his individual versatility is going to matter for us to be able to go to more different lineups, right? Because if he doesn't depend on particular combinations of players next to him, there will be more different combinations of players that he can play next to, more different combinations of players that we can play with Peyton Watson on the floor, right? My question about Peyton Watson's versatility for next season that I had in the notes, though, didn't really have much to do with his offense. It was really about his defense, and whether he's going to showcase his defensive versatility more positionally next season, or if it's going to be temporally, as in I'm good this month and terrible this month, defensively in particular. So what do you think about that?
For who again?
Peyton Watson.
I don't know. You go first.
I think the main question for me when it comes to Peyton's defensive versatility is the defensive IQ. Because I honestly don't like, there's all this stuff with him off ball theoretically that is useful. But it hasn't really been, consistent's not even close to the word. It's more like flashes in the pan in terms of off ball defense. And to be fair, especially this last season, like, nobody on the team gave a shit about defense. So why should the, third-year player, when it comes to like rotating at the right time in help, being in the right place, all of this stuff. But I think that him improving his defensive IQ, and that's not necessarily something he does, although it helps, like watch film, do all the things that players do to become more like smarter, more well-rounded basketball players. But I just wonder, is that going to be a thing that he comes into the season with because he's just got more experience now? I don't know, especially because of the way that last season ended in the playoffs for him. But I do think that the key to Peyton's defensive versatility is his defensive IQ and not relying so much on his physical tools. That's not just like off ball, knowing where to be, busting up actions, all that stuff. It's being more sound with his footwork defensively so that he's not always on skates and relying on his ability to recover, when he's guarding on ball too.
Yeah, that's going to be the key because he has all the physical tools to, be elite,
to be versatile, like be very helpful defensively in a variety of ways, right?
It's just,
but it's
he needs the experience to know when they deploy him in such a manner to be effective, and it will take watching film. I don't know if he was one of the culprits of Malone's criticisms, but he will be needing to do that.
All right, let's talk about some of the starters now. Because like I said earlier, your best players or the best players in the league generally are often the most versatile because you got to be able to do lots of things at a really high level. Let's see here. My question about Jamal is how much will he actually be playing off ball? We know that he can play off ball. He can shoot, do all these things. I don't think we got to see a lot of it at a high level last season. He was playing off of Russell Westbrook when Russell Westbrook was, at his highest usage, points in the season. But a lot of his highest usage games came when Jamal was out and all of that stuff. And so I think the answer to this question actually lies in another one, which I will ask you, Will. How good can Cam Johnson be as an on-ball creator, particularly as a playmaker for others?
Yeah. I think against, an average NBA team, he can be really, really good at it. I think against someone like the Thunder, probably is going to be tougher. Because those gaps are not going to be there. Reads are going to be harder. The hands are going to be swiping at you, turnovers and such. So I'm very hopeful that he's going to be really effective. But I totally get why you're asking this question paired with Jamal, because I would expect Jamal wouldn't be off ball a lot, considering we lost Russ and we don't have that de facto number one backup. Like you have Bruce and you have Jalen Pickett, which we'll talk about Pickett after this. But but then I think, he could be off ball more because of Cam Johnson. And I think they should utilize that if they can.
Yeah.
I like Jamal off ball. He proved that he's a very good catch and shoot, especially in transition last season. Could they do it in the half court more?
Yeah. And my thing with Jamal is actually, I think he's really good at creating separation off the ball. It's more about don't hesitate on the shots. Right. But I think that Jamal is quite good at getting open off ball, actually. And there are a lot of good role players that are great at that, but you don't see a lot of NBA. Maybe you don't consider Jamal to be a star, but let's say top 50 players in the NBA. If we're going to be conservatively speaking, I think most people can agree that Jamal is a top 50 player that are really good at getting open off ball, where it's about setting screens for others as part of complex actions to get yourself open. Jamal's really good at that, and I would actually love to see that utilized more. And we have Bruce, like you said, but I'm actually curious to see how we can sort of exploit that ability in Cam Johnson, just as a curveball to throw within the offense, in a way that we couldn't even really contemplate with Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Poppin says the Nuggets might have to be forced to play like that if the Thunder are, playing in anyone but Jokic and Jamal fashion. And that was a lot of your complaints with the Nuggets, was that we didn't have another creator to take pressure off Jamal or Jokic against tougher defenses. And I remember when we did the which player has the most pressure little segment, and I had Cam Johnson pretty low. I think I've changed my mind on that the more I think about the Nuggets coming into the season, because he's the new player, so you don't necessarily expect a lot because you haven't even seen him play with the team. But I think with the role he has to fill in terms of the 3-point shooting, but then we have this on-ball creation expectation and some playmaking, and then also we need him to hold up pretty well on defense. It is a lot of expectations.
I don't know that it's an expectation. It's more of a hope. I have rock bottom expectations for the quality of the on-ball creation because he played with the Nets. But I will say, if you watch the film, the Nets were bad, but I don't think that I think Cam had some pretty solid reps in pick and roll. I'm just kind of curious. I would like to see that be a wrinkle in our offense. I'm not going to be devastated if it's just not the same quality with Denver for whatever reason. But I would be kind of surprised, I think, if he was just completely unable to replicate his that pick and roll skill in particular. I don't know about ISO or post ups or anything like that, because he is thinner. I don't know that he's going to be that much better at any of that stuff than Mike. But I think pick and roll in particular is something that I am very curious to see more of from him.
I think he'll be a lot better in ISO than Mike, but post up
better enough that we're gonna ever let him do it. I don't know. That's the thing. Is you have to be, because being better in ISO than Mike, what does that even mean? It's
exactly.
Okay.
Cam can dribble, so I mean he's gonna be better. But yeah.
All right, let's move on to AG. Is
wait,
AG's 3-point? Oh, go ahead.
Really quick, did you want to say something about Pickett though? Because we did have a question about that.
Oh yeah, sure. Did somebody in the chat had a question?
Yeah. They just said like where do you see Pickett in all this? His shot looked good at the Rico Hines runs. I can't find it, but that's what they said.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Pickett's shot has looked good at different points throughout last season as well. I will say, digging into the numbers on those lineups, because Pickett's lineups were like pretty good, especially when he played with Jokic, all of that stuff. A lot of that was driven by opponent 3-point shooting and defense. Like the offense didn't actually see much of a bump with him on the floor, even in the games that he obviously like he shot well in games and helped like win some crucial ones, even like down the stretch of the season, for example. But I'm not going to put a lot of expectation on Jalen Pickett's offense or his ability to help the offense. What I see Jalen Pickett's role as being is he's probably going to get a chance early in the season as like the backup point guard. And it might not be in the minutes when Jokic is off the floor. It might just be like we expand the rotation to 10 early. Pickett's playing in those minutes with Jokic on and Jamal off before Jamal comes back into stagger. And they just like, we want another point guard out there with Jokic, and that's what we want right now. So Pickett's going to get that opportunity. And we'll just see. But I think I still have a lot of offensive questions with him because I don't necessarily trust him to create an advantage. Not an advantage for others, but I just mean like creating separation for himself in order to initiate the offense consistently. We'll see what happens. But I think he'll get the opportunity, but I don't have like a really high expectation with that. It's just like, can you be serviceable is the question.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. I mean, we thought he was going to be a de facto can't play in the NBA player, and then he showed a little bit of more flashes where it seemed like he could play in certain instances. He had some good he had a couple good moments in the NBA last season, but we'll see how it goes. Also, really quick, I don't want to get into a super big discussion about this, but we did have a question about if you think Murray or Siakam is a better second option.
I think it depends on who your first option is, to be honest.
I guess Jokic.
I think because you have Jokic, your second option should probably be a point guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Siakam's an awesome player, but he had like a crazy 3-point shooting leap over the last playoffs, and I think that is maybe coloring some people's perceptions of him. I think that he and Jamal are the same tier of player, to be clear, which is, I think, great. Like, I don't mean that as an insult. Siakam probably had a better overall year than Jamal did last year, but I think they're the same tier of player. Siakam has been like awesome. He's a great defender, great transition player. He's got a motor like, I don't know a second option in the league that has the kind of motor that Siakam does, to be honest. But I do think that he is a little bit more like, you got to play his style, which is surprise. Like, you'd be surprised because like, oh, well, Siakam's the off-ball player and Jamal's the point guard. But I think Jamal actually makes a lot of concessions, good ones that should happen because the offense plays better because of the way that he concedes to Jokic's play style. But I do think that like Halliburton has had to make more concessions to Siakam than the other way around. And so it's really just kind of like, what do you value? I don't really trust. He was great about it in these last playoffs, but like his not just his like enthusiasm for really bad mid-range turnarounds is like really annoying to me. But there are tons of things that annoy me about Jamal Murray. Obviously, he's on my team. I have like my list of bullet points, all that stuff. But I honestly, I'm just listing out like the pro con kind of things because I think honestly they're a similar tier of player, and the answer is it depends who your first option is. and how they can fit around each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, let's move on to AG and his versatility, particularly on offense. And I think it's relevant to our discussion about Peyton Watson, honestly, because my question for him is his 3-point leap real? And if so, is he just done with the dunker spot?
My answer?
Yeah.
I have nightmares about his 3 just like disappearing next season. I
mean, it's never going to disappear. Like, he was never a great 3-point shooter, but he was never like abysmal, right?
Right. He like went through some maybe lulls or stretches where he was in a slump like anyone else. But
even last season, he had a month. That's why he finished in the 40s instead of like the low 40s instead of the high 40s, 50s, like he started the season as, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I just mean I have nightmares that it's not going to be as good as it was last season or noticeably worse. Because you could, even if it was a little bit worse, you would take it. But
it's going to be noticeably worse. Like, I just don't think it's sustainable. What did he shoot? Like 43% from 3 last season. And that's not like, he started the season shooting 50% from 3. It's not sustainable, even for the best shooters. Like, I think he's probably going to be somewhere closer to like 37. What I would like to see, though, is him keep up the volume, because I think he had career high volume last season. I got to check.
It's not like it was enough to like throw the rhythm off the offense. Like, yeah.
Right. I want to know if the, well, I mean, it helps that they're going in, right?
Yes.
Because if they weren't, then it would have felt like the offensive rhythm was thrown out, because he got sometimes like those irrationally confident threes. Like, I remember, it's funny because this is what I remember from Jokic's 30-20-20 game against the Suns, was that first quarter AG had against them, where he hit like 5 threes in a variety of ways, including that was it a pull up in transition or a catch and shoot in transition that I think made them call their second timeout that quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely real in the regular season and the playoffs. Like, he kept it up and everyone kept asking, is it going to be real? Is it going to be real? It definitely was real. I just hope it's real next season, too.
He only played 51 games, so...
Yeah, lots of injuries.
I'm not saying it was fake. I'm just saying that he's due for regression, like any shooter would be. Good shooters go through down years, too.
Yeah, right? That's what I'm worried about for sure. And it's like, you wouldn't be surprised if that happened. You'd almost be more surprised if he did it again.
What is the highest that AG's 3-point percentage could be, and you'd be still disappointed?
What was it last year? What did he finish?
I'm looking that up right now. He finished from 3, 44%.
Jesus.
I know.
I would say, like,
can I just say it's the first time that he finished above 65th percentile in terms of 3-point shooting for all forwards.
Yeah, that makes it hard to answer.
Below average every season except for 2021 and like since Orlando, basically. Like 2 seasons in Orlando, he was above average. Every other season, he's been below average 3-point shooter.
Yeah, just like Poppin said, he already had his regression.
I like that. I like that thinking, Poppin.
Yeah, 44% makes it hard to answer that, because like if I said, 38, 39 area, that's like seemingly much worse because you love having that 44%, but that's still pretty good, but it would feel disappointing. I feel like maybe 37 would be like actually really disappointing and bad. I don't know. Somewhere in there. What would you say?
Honestly, it's more about the volume for me. Like, if AG shoots like above league average, like 36, 37%, I'm fine with it if he can maintain the volume, which was last season, 30% of his shots came from 3.
I think he can do that.
That's pretty good. It's not even that high, like in terms of frequency. I looked it up and I'm like, oh, this number is based more. The per game is based more on the fact that he was playing more minutes when he did play. not that he was shooting threes more
Forcing it more.
frequently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he can get there, but to your other point on this question with the dunker spot, I also miss the dunker spot. And I
Yeah.
had kind of chalked that up
Yeah.
to losing KCP. And because when you had him with the starting five, he was in a corner and Mike's in the other corner. It's a lot easier to run a pick and roll with Jamal than have the lob with him in the dunker spot. And when teams aren't respecting CB's shot, even if he's a good 3-point shooter, percentage wise, the dunker spot's not there. And I just feel like we did not see the finale oop as much last season as we would want. I really miss that. I would take having that back over, if we had to pick one or the other. Because I just feel like it was so automatic and so unstoppable, and like it like energizes the team too. Even though an AG3 also I think does the same thing.
I do think I wouldn't mind seeing less of the finale than we did in like 2024, for example. That was like such a go-to like killer play, all this stuff. It's just clear teams are playing him differently, right?
I feel like they're used to it too.
But it would be nice to get some signs that he's not in like major athletic decline. So I do think that part of it, like his finishing at the rim last season, even he got opportunities that could have looked like a finale, but he was so ground bound that he didn't get up there for the lob. He just kind of caught the ball, came back down, and then got fouled instead of getting an and one. Because he was missing those layups too, because he wasn't getting off the ground as much. And like part of that, it's not just athletic decline because of age. He was injured basically all of last season, with first the calf throughout the season, and then obviously the hamstring in the playoffs. So I just want him to be all healed up and to see more of his just general rim finishing be better. Because I do think actually, and this is my note here, is that looking back at the Nets film, and we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on Cam Johnson's passing ability soon. But his interior passing reads are quite good. And I was sort of worried because coming to Denver, he's going to have fewer lob threats than it looked like he had on the Nets. It's not just Claxton. Like they just had a bunch of other athletic guys that could finish over there and finish lobs in particular. And I don't want AG to be like off the list of potential vertical threats for Cam Johnson to pass to and like get to show off those interior passing reads, because I think he's probably the best one that Denver's got, like the best option that Denver's got for Cam in that regard. All right. We've got 3 more here. Christian Braun. Will Christian take some kind of real step forward in terms of his on-ball ability? Now, I asked this question not because I think that Christian's going to be able to blow by guys in ISO or even blow by guys on the second side, because he's not that kind of player. He doesn't have that kind of first step. He's very strong, though. He could probably bully guys from the second side the way that like an AG would if he, got the footwork down and could bully guys on drives and spin off them and finish at the rim. Like that would be, I'd be in heaven if Christian could do some of what AG does, because Christian is smaller and can get through some of those like cracks in the defense a little bit easier than AG can in those same situations. But when AG does have that space, he's finishing that shot or he's getting fouled. Like I almost never worry about that. But with Christian, I can't even picture him doing that. I would love to be able to picture him doing that.
Yeah, we haven't really seen him do it. So
right.
I get why it would be awesome. I was just saying, Poppin asked why would the Nuggets not let CB shoot more threes if he was better at the three, or why are they waiting till he's respected? And I kind of said he would often get the ball when he was open because players were leaving him open, but he would sometimes shoot it and sometimes just drive. And he had a wide open drive, and he would try to go to force the defense to foul him on a layup or a dunk, or sometimes it would be wide open. But he never really has to like drive by a defender that's like right up on him, because he usually doesn't have a defender right up on his face on the perimeter. So I would love that to be the case because of his shooting and then his on-ball skills, being able to, drive by defenders or create advantages. That would be amazing. That would be like a huge step up, I think, for him as a starter.
I think the threshold for a guy getting respected for his shooting depends on the team that he's on. And in the modern NBA, more and more, somebody's going to be ignored unless they are a top threat in the league kind of guy.
Yeah, it's really worth it with Jokic.
Right. And I just don't think that other teams will ever make the calculus that Christian is worth respecting the shots, not just because of the percentage or whatever, because he shot well in the regular season. Like, teams don't care about that. It's his willingness to take the shots. And Poppin, you sort of phrased it as if as if the Nuggets were stopping him from taking these shots. His teammates are begging him to take these wide open shots. You can see them all looking at him. And that's why the times that he takes them and makes them, everyone's like patting him on the back, trying to encourage him. It's because they're trying to encourage the behavior. Like, that seems very apparent to me, that they want to instill confidence in him. Like, that's something that every Nuggets player to a T last season and the year before, their message to Christian is confidence. Coaches too, both Adelman and Malone, were like, Christian needs to take shots. And the reason they're saying that is not because they're stopping him from taking those shots. It's because they're like, Christian is hesitating and they need him to not hesitate. Not because teams are going to respect him because he takes the shots. They're not. But he needs to be able to punish when teams don't respect him. That's the best that you can hope for, I think, for a player like Christian. I just don't expect a player that wasn't... Is there even precedent for a player in the league that doesn't come into the league as a shooter, as like a capital S shooter, and then 4 years later develops into such a deadly threat that guy moves up on the scouting report for his three-point shot making? I don't think so. Right? Whether it's a star or a role player. Because if you're the role players that come into the league like that, they're just like Duncan Robinson, for example, right? He's on the scouting. He's a movement shooter at that, right? And then when a star develops a three-point shot, it's often helpful because that player was a star that was good at something else, and other teams are going to have their shooting lower on the scouting report because they're worried about stopping that first thing, right? That's why Giannis is always going to get endless wide open mid-range jump shots. Endless. He can take as many as he wants. And he needs to get good at making them, and he was last season, at least in the regular season, to punish teams doing that. But it's never going to change the way the teams guard him. And because Christian plays on a team with Nikola Jokic and by extension Jamal Murray because of their two-man game, teams are not going to respect his shot. Honestly, I think that teams would have started ignoring KCP close to, if not as much as they ignored Christian this season, because it was evident this season especially that every team was coming out with a completely different aggressive... There were a variety of different aggressive game plans to try and stop Denver this season. I don't think that Christian is like the blame for all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like that a lot of pressure has been put on the three-point shot to kind of fix that problem. But if it is such a good game plan against the Nuggets and Jokic, who, they're a paint team, right. If the Nuggets kind of prove themselves to be a little bit better of a three-point shooting team and kind of shift that, I don't know if that will change things or not, but...
Yeah, and this is why, and Denver was like a good three-point shooting team this last season, right? And like Jokic shot well. I think Jokic obviously shot better than he ever had in his entire career, and I don't think this was the season where he was guarded out on the perimeter more than any other season. There were certain games here and there, especially after the midway point of the season, where other Where some other players were like, oh, shoot, we got to really respect this perimeter shot now. But for the most part, I thought teams were even more aggressive than ever at being like, we're on the interior now, and we're going to stop you on the interior, at least try to stop you from even getting the ball in the interior. But your 3-point shot, like, we have to live with that shit. And then teams had to, and sometimes they died by it. But that's why my question with Christian was about taking a step in terms of his on-ball ability, particularly in running like simple pick and rolls a la Bruce Brown. Like, Bruce somehow played point guard in college. I question how good that team was as a starting point, as having Bruce Brown as your starting point guard. But I questioned that, and I literally went to the school because I didn't watch the games, guys. But if Christian can run simple pick and roll with Jokic, what does that mean? It means you have your best shooters playing off the ball more and giving Christian space to develop in that ability, to throw a wrinkle into the offense, to give another option on some of those like semi-dead possessions where you got nothing going and maybe Jamal's off the floor and Christian just has the ball with 8 seconds left in the shot clock kind of thing. Like, those are the kinds of situations I'm thinking about. Not like, can Christian initiate the offense? Can he create advantages? Nothing like that. But it's just like, has Christian developed enough on-ball ability to make a play when he has that opportunity instead of tossing a grenade to Jokic or Jamal with 6 seconds left on the shot clock?
Or if he can't do that, how about an off-ball screen? How many times did we do something like that with Christian for someone? I would like to see that too.
I would like to see it if he's going to do it. Like, I keep going back to this on-ball ability thing because Jamal's the only high-level on-ball creator we have. Like, I keep going back to it with all of these different players. We don't know what kind of state Bruce Brown's ability is going to be like at this stage in his career. And so I'm looking for like other opportunities for other guys to be able to make plays on the ball, right?
Yeah.
Getting Christian to screen for Jamal, like especially in like these late clock or like close to late clock situations, these like last 8 seconds of the possession, we're not going to like run a complex play with a bunch of off-ball screens to get Jamal open to take a shot with 4 seconds left on the clock, right? It's like, I have the ball now. Can I make something happen? Those are the kinds of things
I'm more hopeful that Cam will be able to do that than CB, but it would be great for CB to do that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're in that kind of situation, you're working off of instinct, and I don't think that Christian has enough reps to have the instinct to like do something with like 8 seconds and that kind of thing. Who knows? We'll see. All right. Let's run through these last two. Is Jokic, and this is related to a previous comment we got about Jokic's defense. Is Jokic just going to be less scheme versatile defensively going forward? After a rough defensive year last season, for him, for the whole team, but it's including and especially him, I think. Because I think if he'd been better defensively, we would have been substantially better defensively, not only because of how important the center is to all of that, but also because I think other players would have cared more if they were like, okay, Jokic is trying. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the whole team was just completely dejected and wasn't ever going to care in any instance. He also looked really big this summer in a way I was not particularly pleased with in Eurobasket, right? And we've already talked in this discussion about Jokic's mobility. I probably would have been less concerned with what could this double big look be with Val, especially defensively, if Jokic was in his like 2023 shape. But he's obviously like in a completely different shape than he was. And I don't know that he's ever going to go back to what he was in 23, because I think part of his transformation over the last 2 years has been intentional, and probably another part, like non-trivially, has been unintentional in terms of how he looks now. And I think that that's a big part of, the defense, regressing. So My question in that regard is, can he actually take advantage of his new size? Although, hopefully slimming down at least a little bit before training camp. To be more of a sound, ground-bound rim deterrent. And he's already a pretty good rim deterrent, but I think he could be even better, especially at keeping guys from going up at the rim. Like, turn some of those, like, shots that would be within 2 to 4 feet to shots that would be within 5 to 7 feet.
I think my biggest concern with him trying to use his size more to be a rim deterrent is him getting into any kind of foul trouble more often. But if he would just
the whole idea is like keeping guys from taking shots on him, right? So
yeah. And I think he's good at he has been good at guarding pick and roll, sometimes forcing a guard off of an action to take a shot that's more of a mid-range than trying to go by him to get a layup. Because I think if they did that more often, they'd have more success. But he kind of like goads them into taking that shot. And if he doesn't have the mobility, can he still do that? I don't know.
Good question.
I hope that if he
in order
is
to
bigger,
do that, you have to, in order to like juke someone like that, you have to be able to recover in a way.
Yeah. I thought like even though he looked bigger, he was like trying really hard to like be in position on actions and recover in Eurobasket. And obviously that is a one game elimination kind of tournament. He's going to put in as much effort as possible. He's going to do that night in, night out in the NBA.
Yeah, he certainly had his games for sure. Yeah.
But it's just, if he is going to be big and he likes that archetype of a player to give him advantages, whether it's offense or defense, I really hope he can leverage it to be better on defense. And I guess my thing is just like the scheme. Like the scheme is so predictable. Everyone knows how to attack the Nuggets and how they would like to defend. It's like very well understood at this point what the Nuggets do with Jokic on defense and being at the level and low man tagging. It's just what they do every time. So I would love some different looks, whether that's zone or who knows.
Yeah, we're probably going to get him just because like the at the level has been such absolute trash. Or it was, again, I like something I really want to stress about that. Like I hear you about wanting more scheme versatility just tried out, and we probably will see that with the zone, but I cannot emphasize enough how much it looked really bad when in the regular season they tried other schemes because nobody was trying, and it looked bad when they were in their base scheme because nobody was trying or executing, I should say. Like I think execution is way more important than scheme. Because there were tons of possessions in zone. Thank you, David Adelman, for pointing that out, that like adjustments are often about just like execute better, go out there and do the thing better. There were possessions in zone where I'm like, nobody is like communicating, nobody knows where to be, they're not boxing out, they're not rebounding. And it doesn't, like, it's good to have options to go to, but the thing I'm looking forward to most defensively from the whole team this season is just like, again, I can't say this enough, but the level of give a shit was just not there last year. All right. Last one here. We got Cam Johnson. And my question for him and his versatility is, who can he guard? Is he going to just be able to guard down better than MPJ? Or will he be able to guard up at all? And you sort of touched on that a little bit in your discussion about you can't just sort of slot Cam in as like a small ball 4 with any sort of like you can try it, but it's like a pretty small ball 4, right? So the question is,
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if that worked out. Like there were people who were they were championing. I can't say that word. Championing MPJ at the 4 and how effective that would be. I don't know that it would be as successful with Cam, and we rarely ever.
It wasn't successful with MPJ either. But that's again like defensively, the whole team was like trash last year. So how much can you attribute to the lineup versus nobody gave a shit? Right?
Yeah. I think he has more potential to be a little bit more matchup present that defensive matchup versatility than people might think. I just don't know how successful will be, but I'm hopeful that he would be able to do it just because he's smaller than Mike, but he's not like small.
Yeah.
So I think he could guard up a little bit.
I mean, he's smaller than Mike, but Mike was already small. Like, they're both skinny is the thing.
Yeah,
like, that's
skinny.
my main thing. It's not the height, it's the girth, I guess.
Like, don't
and
put
the
him
rebounding.
on.
Like, that's my thing with power. That's one of the things I'm worried about with their power forward position, or like our non-AG power forwards is like, I don't trust any of you to be good at 4 things.
Right.
Rebounding, screening consistently, etc. Right? So it's tough.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've heard so many different things on Cam Johnson as somebody who did not watch like every Nets game. And people, like when he was on the Suns, I feel like the perception was he was like a really good 3-and-D player. And that's why they got to the finals. And then over time, I feel like people have started to talk about Cam not being a great defender. I don't really know who to believe. I know you kind of said you don't think Cam's the greatest defender. I'm going to remain hopeful that he can be a 3-and-D player. I don't think he's going to be able to stop like elite offensive wings, but we'll see.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is like the bar is not super high when it comes to replacing MPJ defensively, but I will say it's a little bit higher than I think some people let on, because you're not just replacing I think Cam could be probably better on ball than MPJ was, at least guarding down. That's why I broke the question up into guarding down versus guarding up. And it's not like MPJ was great at guarding guys that were bigger than him anyway, but the rebounding is going to be a real downgrade at that position. And I don't want to put the expectation on Cam's not going to touch MPJ's rebounding numbers, particularly defensively. I'm curious about his offensive rebounding though. That's something I'm really curious about how the whole team's going to rebound, because I do think the dynamic is different this season with the personnel that we have. And they weren't really good at it last year. But again, they didn't give a shit. All right. Are you ready for the shot clock violation, Will? Our last segment before we peace out here.
Yes. Here we are. So we're going to be picking... Here, you can explain it.
All right. So I decided that we're going to do a shot clock violation segment on the scariest role players in the West. And the way that I define that is they can't be the number 1 or number 2 guy on their team. And these are Nuggets killers, right? So like, I'm not talking about guys that other teams are scared of. I'm talking about guys that for one reason or another could kill the Nuggets. And how long is it? Oh, shot clock is only 24 seconds. Oh man, that's so short.
This is going to be the hardest one yet.
It is. It really is. We might each get 1 or 2. All right. You want to go first? They can't be the
number 1 and 2. I have to remember that.
Yeah, they can't. It's not like
game
you
5.
Can't say right. Like you can't say SGA.
Yeah.
Or OKC, for example. Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll just go first and just.
So yeah. I'll name the team, and you give me the player.
Okay.
Okay. Ready? Let me know when you're about to start the clock.
3, 2, 1, go.
Portland.
I don't know. Abdia.
Lakers.
God damn it. LeBron.
Spurs.
Is he?
Oh, wait, you can't count. You can't do LeBron.
Spurs. I don't even know who's on the Spurs anymore. I only got 2 players.
I said we might only get 1 or 2.
Luka's number 1 on, and LeBron's just not going to be good enough to be the number 2 option. So he's going to be number 3.
Who's going to be? Tell me who's the number 2 option on the Lakers this year, Will?
LeBron.
You couldn't say anybody else. I thought you were going to say Rui.
Well, I'm just like,
Okay.
I honestly couldn't think of anyone on the Lakers who would be a problem for us besides Luka.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't even know who to pick. That was like a trick question.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no one's going to be a problem. No one's scary for me.
Okay. All right. Let me know when you're...
I don't even know if I spelled Avdia right.
Avdi... Oh, the I is before the J, but otherwise...
So close.
You were close. You were close.
Wow, that was like horribly horrible.
Avdi... No, IJ. You just wrote it the same way that you had it before.
Jesus. There we go.
Yeah. I think that's
okay.
right.
This time you're gonna get more.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't plan any of these ahead of time. I like maintain the sanctity of the shot clock violation game. So I don't think I'll get more.
I was like, I can't think of anyone who's on the Lakers other than LeBron and Luka and Rui. But I was like, Rui. I can't say Rui. He's the famous guy from the Lakers playoff series that had the adjustment that wasn't the adjustment.
You should have said Rui for the memes.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, let me get yours ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Golden State.
Kuminga.
Phoenix.
Oh my gosh, who's on Phoenix? Oh my god, I literally don't even know who's on the Suns. Nick Richards.
Oh, okay. Houston.
Jabari.
Okay, you got 3.
Okay.
Kuminga.
Does Jabari kill us? I feel like he's just like stretch 4. He can do some stuff, whatever. I don't know that he kills us, though. Then again, it's kind of like a similar archetype to Kuminga, except he's better than Kuminga because he doesn't make as many
Dylan
mistakes,
Brooks.
but he also doesn't kill us like Kuminga does in like transition. Oh, Dylan Brooks on the Suns. That's what I should have said. Yeah.
Grayson
nice.
Allen, is he?
Oh, great. Grayson is still on the Suns. Yeah, he does always go off.
Yalman Thompson, Tariq, and Chat
well,
should have played
Amon's
this
a
game.
he's a number 1 or 2 guy, depending on the day. Oh, I guess not because of Kevin Durant. No,
Kevin Durant and Şengün, and
I'm not
and
really
their
as worried
stats.
about Amon in like a Nuggets matchup. Maybe I should be more worried, but I'm not. We'll see what kind of leap he takes this season. Even defensively, like he's good, but there's no like, oh no, he's gonna really lock up our star wing ? You know?
Mm-hmm. I need to look at the Lakers roster again. Austin Reeves. That's who I should have said.
Oh yeah.
Like, let's say he just hits a bunch of threes or some bullshit.
He's kind of like not like the last series we had against him, he was terrible offensively because he was like dead tired chasing Jamal around.
Yeah. But that was even like annoying that he was doing that, and he was doing it decently, but yeah.
He was doing it decently, but Jamal also sucked in that series, so whatever. All right. There you have it, people. Those are the scariest role players in the West for the Denver Nuggets.
Horrible showing. We can't all have our best performances, as you know, from watching the Nuggets.
If you have made it this far, we appreciate you guys the most. If you do like our content, please remember to click the like button as well as the subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well so you never miss a show. Leave us a review anywhere you listen to your podcast, including Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, preferably a 5-star review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you should head over to one of those podcast platforms and leave us a 5-star review anyway. And follow us on socials. All our social links are in the description. We put show announcements and clips up on there as well. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks. Especially losing the shot clock violation game that I made up last minute.